Hey, welcome back to Drive Time. I am your host, Craig Pasta Jardula, and we do it live, bringing you all the hot takes, headlines, and unfiltered opinions that matter most. Whether you're stuck in traffic, cruising to work, or just chilling at home, we want to hear from you. Today's topics are all about the big stories making waves, but we're not just here to talk at you. We want to hear your thoughts, your experiences, and your take on everything from the latest political debates to the everyday challenges we face. Remember, whether you're on the left, the right, or somewhere in between, we welcome all points of view. So grab that hands-free device, dial us up, and let's dive into the conversation. What's on your mind? It's Drive Time. Call in now. If you're not doing what I'm doing with this new fancy haircut, my back on, if you're not doing what I'm doing with this new fancy haircut, which is getting your phone, getting the link, YouTube a Rumble person, and sending it out to your friend, then we're not doing the world justice. What are we doing here, ladies and gentlemen? We need to work together. Hello, Joanna. Joe Mama. And that's not Joanna. Is it Joe? Is Joanna Joe Mama? I don't know. Same person. Hello. Is that Robbie Burns? Robbie Burns. Yep. Where the hell have you been? Of course, our good friend, Exile the Knights of Malta now. Good morning. Is it Shuni or what's his name?
Choosy.
What's up, Choosy? Where's Fred Edward? I know Fred Edward's somewhere linking around.
He's in there. He's in there.
Fred. I'm looking at the StreamYard chat, so the StreamYard chat doesn't show everything, but holy shit, Exile. Let people get their fucking coffee in. Jesus Christmas. Boom. Let the coffee kick in. Which makes me wonder. He wasn't around the other day. Choosy, you said? Choosy. Yeah. I love that name, Choosy. What's up? Where were you the other day when we were having these conversations? I mean, I've been thinking about, and a friend of mine told me, Joanna told me, he said, listen, maybe we should pose a question of the day, Sleepy. So you know how like Pee Wee Herman had the word of the day? We can have the question. Write it down. Get that soundbite. So we'll have a question a day, and then we'll hit the soundbite and go, Is there enough light over in this side of my face over here? This is my good side. Guys, welcome to the show. Karen Kwiatkowski will be along shortly. We're going to have a great time. Remember, this is a call-in show where you are taking the steering wheel and controlling what we're talking about, not just the mainstream media. 561-247-2721, 561-247-2721. I mean, I think the question of the day is Israel already used nuclear weapons in Lebanon? Have you seen some of these photos? That ain't Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That's Lebanon. Sorry, go ahead, Sleepy.
Well, I mean, you usually have some after effects that are more apparent, so I don't know.
Good morning, Bob. Good to see you, Fred, of course. Thank you so much.
But, who knows, man?
Is Nico House, was that the chat from yesterday? Why is Nico House still in the chat?
It's probably just leftover from yesterday.
How come it's still in the... Oh, because it's the same link, maybe. Who knows?
I don't see it.
I don't see it. Do me a favor, guys. Get a like. Get a share. Let's get it out there. I'm going to check on the Rumble right now. The Rumble's been just hot. Sleepy, we got to put those thumbnails in the that you have into the doc so I can put them up because I just have the plain thumbnail. We actually have a thumbnail.
They're in the share folder.
They are?
Yeah.
That's right. You said that already.
I already did my homework.
Good morning.
It's morning. You have a pass.
What is going on over here? Is this yesterday's show I have up? What's today's episode?
28, right?
You know why? I'm like, why am I not seeing? I'm looking at the drive time. I got up episode 27 from yesterday. Maybe that's why. Let me make sure I have the right one. No, that is. Why am I on the? Hold on, guys. I'm sorry. Guys, I want to thank you all for joining us today. Remember, this is Pasta to Go channel. This is, it's 28. Yeah, it wasn't on the there. Good morning, Nadira. Miss Applebaum, you got it going on? Got a new haircut.
Looks good.
I should be saying good morning first and stuff. I forgot to say good morning. Oh, I did say good morning. Never mind. So, hey.
Not enough coffee today.
Live. I'm talking about you.
Doing it live.
All right, so you can watch in. See, that's what you got to do. Sometimes we got to send it by phone. So some good news on the good front. The Truth Wire, which is the Convo Couch, which is what a lot of people, you guys found me. We originally started with Fiorella Isabel. That is now monetized. The channel has been given back its monetization. I don't know what that means exactly because I still think that things are so bad. And this is the problem we had, right? During this whole kind of internet censorship stuff, when the left was in control, and we got demonetized the day AOC wrote a letter and they took down literally 8 or 9 channels at one time, and everybody was floating around that letter. She was telling people to report. It was almost like a coordinated effort. We hadn't had our monetization back until then, but that was the problem. People were not being principled, right? We need to be free speech absolutists no matter what. If it's something we're going to pay for, if there's liability protection from the government, in other words, if I cannot sue YouTube for something somebody else says about me, that they have protections, that they pretty much what the NDAA says, which is Section 220 of the National Defense Act. It's so weird that they lump this in. This is what our government does. They lump in laws with other laws, make it very confusing. But in Section 220 of the NDAA says that a platform will have protection, liability protection, as long as it acts, as a platform and not a publisher. In other words, they cannot pick winners and losers. However, the system that they're operating on is completely proprietary, which drives me crazy because this is the public square. This is what has become a part of the public square, right? And we need to make sure that it's consistent across the board. It's just like, I know it's not a good comparison, but if you think of that sign that said, it was a water fountain that said whites only, right? I mean, I know, once again, don't want to piss out the leftists and the liberals out there, whatnot. I know it's, you might think it's not as bad, but this is our speech. This is a reason why it's number one. And even though it is a private company, if they have protections, they need to be transparent as can be. We should have an open source system. We should know why some voices get lifted up and some get lifted down or pushed down. Because it's important, because if you can control the narrative in the media, you can control a lot of things. You can control the narrative on our foreign policy, on our common laws made here. I think a reason why there's so many flock cameras out there is that anybody who was doing shows about flock cameras, the AI picked it up and, censored it. I mean, this is what they can do. So unfortunately, we got into this situation where we went back and forth and the left attacked the right and the right attacked the left. And where are we today? There's not an open source system. You have the biggest donkeys in the world. Not like we have smart donkeys. They have dumb donkeys, right? So today we have our smartest one of the group. It is Karen Kwiatkowski. How are you?
I'm fine. Doing good.
We're talking about censorship right now and how we're flying that, and the argument is, if in fact, maybe that's a good question. If in fact you have protections from the government, whether it be the platforms that you can't sue because of Section 220 of the NDAA, which says as long as they act like a platform and not a publisher, they can't get sued. Our vaccines, emergency use authorization, you cannot sue them because they have protections and liability from the government. If these entities have protections from the government, shouldn't they be open source and transparent to the public, Colonel?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. In fact, they shouldn't, the government protects itself, and we see it in all these different ways. That's, put the government bureaucrats put together something. It's a great idea. They love it. It'll be wonderful. Like the, emergency use act for COVID vaccines. But there's all kinds of things. There's a million things that they do. And they don't want to be accountable. And this is why I love the free market. The free market says, if I don't like it, I don't buy it. Okay. Yeah. And I vote with my dollar, my penny, as it is today. But the government doesn't want that. They do not want you voting on what they are telling you. They are an authoritarian structure. I don't care how good your government is. At the very heart of government, it is the use of force. So they don't want to be accountable. They will refuse to be accountable, and they use their power to make sure that they're not accountable. And this is why you have revolutions. Okay. This is why people revolt against all governments that are overweening, and ours is definitely already there.
Yeah. It's a shame because we got to a point right now, when the left was in charge, right? When they, had the White House and before Donald Trump got in, They were using all their powers to, censor. And then at some point, so you listen to these hearings when they would summon, all these guys, the head of Google, Jack Dorsey from Twitter at the time, Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook. It's like the government was telling them based on political ideology. People like Dick Blumenthal, and I don't call him Richard, I call him Dick because he is a dick. Right? I mean, the Democrats like Dick Blumenthal and Elizabeth Warren and Chris Murphy going to Ukraine and go, oh, we got to stand up behind these people. When did the left in America become completely just all-out warmongers? I mean, this is something that Karl Rove had talked about. Can you imagine if we just get warmongers on the left together and we have one happy, imperialistic force moving forward? So you got this guy, these people over here are anti-Russian, these people who are anti-China. Either way, the defense contracts, I don't know if you know, by the way, this is what I'm talking about, to me, the big question is always right now is who's pulling the strings. There's a big push to where people are saying, a little bit, I feel a little bit different that Israel is at the top of the pyramid pulling the strings. They're the ones we have to watch. I believe it goes bigger than that. We have our guy in the chat, Exile Knights of the Malta. I believe this is like a Babylonian death cult. But at the end of the day, I do believe that these defense contractors are accomplices, and they're very happy with Israel getting the blame. You did a show with my business partner and my colleague, Uncontrolled Opposition. And one of the things you talked about that was so important is that the military-industrial complex, like war is a racket, right? Just recently, Lockheed Martin got a $38 billion contract to replace all the THAAD missile systems. So I know that, the military-industrial complex probably, they act like they get swayed, like, oh, we're just fighting all these wars for Israel. No, we have to empty out the weapons in the tool shed so we can use that checkbook to buy new weapons. And I sometimes feel like they skate away scot-free and everybody's pointing the finger at the Zionists. No, it goes higher than that. Yep. Why can't people see it? I mean, Lockheed Martin is primarily owned by the stakeholders in the United States, people in the market. They're owned by State Street, BlackRock, Vanguard. So people in the market who are okay with this going on is because they're okay with it because the Dow is over 50,000. And we're not talking about that. We're just going Israel. It's mind-boggling at this point.
Well,
Please, Karen, save me
right now. Yeah, I can't save you because you're right. I mean, this is a problem. All these people, and I'll just pick on the baby boomers because I can pick on my own what do you call it, generation.
I pick on the Christians because I was Catholic growing up. So
there you go. Yeah. So the boomers are looking at their portfolios, their IRAs, their whatever they got that their companies funded for them, that maybe they funded and they saved, and they said stock market is great. And if you listen to Dave Ramsey, always says, you put it in stocks. Don't do gold or hide it under the bed. You just do stocks. Stocks are great. They always go up 10%. Okay, well, they don't. It's inflationary, one. But two, it's a psychological thing that people cannot tolerate paper losses of what they have, what they feel is their whole entire future, their whole entire existence. And as you get older, let's say you are retired or you are, and of course, a lot of people retire with nothing, but those who are invested in the stock market and all these great state and company investment portfolios that fund their retirees also. I mean, it's not just Social Security, it's not just your IRA, it's what the companies themselves invest in. Let's say that $50,000 stock market goes to 25. Well, 25, my God, that was less than 10 years ago, it was 25. So that wouldn't be a big draw, fallback. We've had this massive inflationary production of printing. COVID era was all about putting trillions into the system, and that finds its way into the stock market. We think, oh, that's great. That's actual real stuff. And we can't lose that. Well, they've done studies on how people emotionally react to gains and losses, and they really hate losses. People despise losses. They cannot tolerate them. And so we have a system that locks in so many American, just average people into the war machine, because the war machine was blown up these things. And then the president goes and finds new wars. And as soon as Biden, pulled the troops from Afghanistan, of course, everybody had wanted that. We didn't understand why we were there. But as soon as that happened, what did we do? Poured resources into Ukraine. But it wasn't really resources. It was all the old stuff. And we saw Europe doing the exact same thing. Europe dumped every old system they had. They were pulling stuff out of the World War II hoppers, and they were, we don't need this. Let's clean this out, make room. Let's make room for the new stuff that we will surely get. Now, if you notice, Europe's NATO countries can't afford to buy all this new stuff. And I don't know if you saw, but Zelensky thought he was getting 40 billion in loan and, basically free money. He's not paying any of it back. And it was all military stuff to help him defend himself against the evil Russians. And 40 billion is now shrunk. The NATO has shrunk that to 10 because nobody has the money. So we're going broke on war, all to avoid looking the truth in the face. And the truth in the face is the dollar has devalued. Our economy is heavily warped towards war, to a war economy, which makes no sense because all the Americans, if you ask them, do you want war? They say, no, we don't want war. How about one in Iran? No, we don't want that. How about we go fight for Ukraine? No, we don't want that. Americans don't want war. They don't even want, if Trump had tried to send troops into Venezuela, that would have been radically opposed in this country. But of course, he didn't do that. He
just used HARP instead and knocked them down a bunch of buildings.
That's right. So you hide it from the Americans. And this is what's happening with the new NDAA, where we merge ourselves. They've changed the number from 224 to 219 now, but to integrate one of the clauses that integrates the IDF into our military, particularly for acquisition, particularly for systems and money exchanges and AI sharing and intelligence sharing. So all these things that we really don't understand anyway, now it'll be hidden deep in the system. We'll never have to think about it. And that's what they want. They want us not to think about the reality of what they are doing to our country. And I say they. I'm not talking about the Zionists. They're looking out for their own country. I'm talking about
the real power.
System.
The real power. Yeah.
So to make it change, it can fall on its own accord, which it will do eventually, and actually sooner than people think. But if you want to change it, most people aren't prepared to fight that change battle, because that change battle means you're going to see your portfolio in your IRA and your federal and state.
Yeah, but how many people are really invested into the stock market over here? These everyday people really don't have a lot. If we were to say, okay, let's switch from a wartime economy to a infrastructure economy, where there's so much we can do here. We have roads, bridges, and waterways that we can rebuild. We got railroad we can put in. That would help everyday.
Those jobs are American jobs. Can do. Americans can do that. Immigrants can do that. People that live in this country can do those jobs. Okay. And they would probably welcome it. But guess what? Guess who gets hurt when you shift that economy? It's the profit centers, the people who are taking this massive profit and then buying up everything else. So the system that we have, and I hate to call it capitalism because it's not the free market. There's nothing free about it. Yeah. If it was a free market, we would say, do you want to pay for war? And we would say, no, the Pentagon gets 1 penny out of every dollar. That's what we would say as a people. Okay. Maybe some people say, well, it's 2 pennies. Okay. But that we don't get a choice in that. We send congressmen up there. They get influenced and bought off by people that want war. That does include Israel's politics, because, Israel can't fight their wars without us. They definitely need us to pursue their own national objectives. So they're fighting for that, just like which is why they should be registered under FARA, because they are fighting for their own interests. And that's understandable. We have a system that allows that we can have some visibility into it. Don't abide by that. They twist the rules. That's fine. You got to fight for your own country, but nobody fights for our country. Nobody is working to improve our system. And it really is heading towards collapse. And I don't know. I have to tell you, I saw just a brief clip of JD Vance on the Ben Shapiro show. Now, I don't watch the Ben Shapiro show. I despise Ben Shapiro in principle. And he's also, I also find him annoying, but I don't even, I'm not interested.
Aaron, I don't know what you're talking about. Just because I talk like this, like I'm always going through my nose, it doesn't mean that I should be annoying.
It's weird. Yeah. I shouldn't criticize, but anyway.
No, you can criticize Ben Shapiro. That's allowed. He deserves to be criticized. Have you ever seen the thing where he hits the bag real quickly and it hits him back in the face in college? There's a video of him.
I have seen that.
Yeah. Somebody send that to Karen, but please, you were saying you were watching the show and with JD Vance, and what did you hear?
Yeah, it was just a brief clip. I want to go back and actually watch the whole interview, but JD Vance said very clearly that the MOU between us and Iran that Trump signed and what did all this big thing, this MOU, really was simply done to refill the oil coffers, to refill the stocks, to buy time, which is what the Iranians always believed and suspected. They do not trust us. But here's J.D. Vance, number 2 guy politically in the country, saying exactly what the Iranians are accusing us of. And there was another interview unrelated to this one, same time frame, where Professor Zhang of China, he's not a professor. Okay, he's not a professor, but he's a really cool guy. And he does these great logical, rational explanations of what's going on in the world. Very interesting. He's actually become quite popular. But anyway, this guy,
he's out of the blue. He just came out of nowhere.
Yeah. And he has an Eastern perspective, or I would say
very anti-China, kind of.
Well, I would say. kind of anti-China, but also kind of anti the U.S. in the sense of he calls it like he sees it. And anybody who sees the U.S. as it actually operates, you wouldn't necessarily be for that. Anyway, he said he said basically the same thing, that this MOU buys time. It's very hot in Iran. It's hot in the Middle East. You can't rebuild. You can't fight. You certainly can't send troops. But he says anywhere as early as September, October, or as late as next spring, we will take those 50,000 troops that we have already in theater that we have not drawn down. I mean, we should have, but it looks like we haven't. And we'll add 10 more. It'll be 60K. This is what Professor Zhang says. 60K troops, and that we will continue the battle because that's what Israel needs. And that's what our defense industry needs. He didn't say that was why, but that is why. If we do that, it's because our system demands it. Our economic political system, which is really sick. It's a sick, warped system right now. And it wasn't always like this. This is something that has come about really since Eisenhower's time. And he saw it evolving. And he didn't do much about it. He was a military man. He was a politician, but not a really like sharp, wily politician. He was a general most of his life, a bureaucrat for much of his life. So he saw it, and he said it, and he told us about it. He said, we need to be careful that our policies aren't driven by the military-industrial complex. Yeah. And guess what? Nothing happened except for it continued to be driven.
He felt... I think like Eisenhower looked at himself as like an abused child. Like the military-industrial complex is out there. They fucking abused me. They moved me all like I did shit that I probably wouldn't do in Latin America and in Iran. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So if they could do it to me, which I am a war guy. I'm a general, but I'm a compassionate war general who knows what it's like because that was the never again time, right? After World War II, all these people like Patton and Eisenhower and all, they said never again. And what they saw was only a small slice. They didn't have eyes on the Battle of Stalingrad with the Germans and the Russians, where so many people got just mowed down left and right. From even the small snapshot that they saw, they said never again. But I really want to stay here where we're talking about since Eisenhower, this has happened. What we have to realize, and we have to kind of quote the great George Carlin, there's been a dumbing down and a propagandizing of the American people like never before. Since Eisenhower, a high school degree is almost equivalent to a college degree today. In other words, the level of education is so far off. And George Carlin said it. They're not going to really educate you. They're going to give you just enough education so that you can push the brooms and the buttons around and get things done. But they're not going to give you enough sense or let you think for yourselves to where you can sit around a table and figure out who's screwing you. That's not the case. Everybody is just so consumed. We have a dumbed down, propagandized public. And, I've been talking about fighting with some of my friends that smart people that will actually, I don't know what's the word. They'll tell themselves, they'll convince themselves of bullshit just to justify the United States actions as if the actions of the empire are necessary when they are not, Colonel.
Yeah. I mean, when we saw this in COVID quite distinctly, so many really, really smart people simply bent the knee to government science, which in another scenario, let's say that they were, let's say the issue was abortion. Let's say the issue was the government's going to do something technical with abortion that they didn't like.
Yeah.
The liberal, elite, intelligent people, and I mean very intelligent people. If there was something they didn't like, they would have fought that tooth and nail, and they would have fought it with science. They would have fought it with resistance. They would have fought it with anti-authoritarianism. They would have fought it with lawsuits. Okay, that's how they would have fought it. And not just march. They would have marched in the streets too. But something about this, something we've all been brought up with, which it's a paternalistic government. It's a government that cares about us, government that wants to help us. And so somehow, when the COVID thing came about, combination of fear and a pre-existing belief that the government cares about us and really wants to do the right thing for us, smart people bought that. Whole political parties bought that, and that includes the Republicans. It's like
got a caller coming in.
Yeah, gotcha.
Take the shot. Plenty of Republicans took the shot, and plenty of Republicans turned into Karens. Making sure everybody was following government guidelines, which were based on absolutely nothing. So smart people can be really fooled. So maybe, we've got to look deeper at what the problem is here. What is it we really need to develop in our
well, that's why we have this show, Drive Time, so we can hash out those problems. We can talk about it, find the problems. We got a caller in here. Well, guys, remember, if you want to call in, 561-247-2721. Caller, who are you? Where are you calling from?
Is that me?
That is you.
Craig, it's Steve in Pearl River. How's it going?
What's going on, buddy? How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, well, so I'm getting ready to go back to sleep. Is the Colonel still there?
The Colonel is still here and awaiting your call. And I get that you're warming up for today's Wednesday show.
Because I have a comment. I have a general comment to make, especially in light of the last 72 hours. And here we are. We're approaching July 4th weekend, the 250th anniversary. And I'm hearing the word patriotism. And what really has me bothered is that the version that I'm being served up, as far as I'm concerned, especially when I looked at some of the opinions from the Supreme Court in the last couple of days, I'm looking at patriotism, guys. That's what it seems like to me.
It's a great word.
That this version, this iteration, is patriotism. And I don't know if I've ever, I feel like I've been pushed. I don't know if I'm coining this term or what, but I find it very flag upside down distressing. I just wonder how the Colonel feels about that assessment.
Colonel, before you dive into that, right? And I want to just say this much, Steve, what a great conversation. I have it on my list, the birthright decision, right? Because I want to get I don't want to get the Colonel in too much trouble, but we like to get our guest in somewhat trouble. So we put the hard questions out there. But I would say this much, that yes, these are the things that disgust me. And I, obviously being a pro-immigrant, people say you're an open borders, guys, whatever the case may be. I am very much pro-immigrant, and I believe that they have a right to be here, especially because of American foreign policy pushing a lot of people here. But I do want to keep a sense, Steve, though, because I want to get your question at the end, is like your thoughts towards, let's say, the leftist liberals that they have towards the right themselves, right? You know what I'm saying? And so forth. I think we need to talk about that, because I think at the end of the day, Colonel, and I'll let you rip, is that this whole thing that we see with these decisions that are made when it comes to immigrants and whatnot, and I was in Minnesota for the march, it's designed to make sure that we are screaming across at each other and not those who are benefiting. Please go ahead, Colonel, and we'll have a discussion. You're here at Drive Time, everybody.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. It is about dividing us. It always is. And we're kind of colonized, and that's colonial. That is classic colonial policy. You get the people you're colonizing to fight amongst themselves, and you put some of them up on pedestals and then others on pedestals, and then, give them, and then the people fight amongst themselves, not realizing that the real problem is, you're owned. You're being treated as if you're owned by a foreign power. And we are in this country. So I don't know about patriotism. Patriotism it's definitely something that is promoted by the government. They probably wouldn't like that term.
Could I say this much though? We are not being controlled by a foreign policy when it comes to our immigration policies. These are American policies. Conservatives in these countries, and I can't understand it, they have a disdain for immigrants and wokeism and communism that is beyond belief, and they're supposed to be able to keep their eye on the prize, and that is the ruling class. And yet they get upset when they don't get their way because they want to blame the immigrant for everything. Yeah. Please continue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and also this is anti-free market. If libertarians get picked on as a party, of course, sometimes they're all over the place, but they get picked on as a party because they're accused by the conservatives in particular to be open borders. And some libertarians are, closed borders. And obviously Ron Paul explains it in, if you have a welfare system that immigrants can come in and take advantage of and not work. Well, we do have something like that, but that's not what they do. That's not what they do. And when you think about the need for people to pursue a better life, and if they come to America to do that, well, when we treat them like the way we treat them, you end up with the chosen industries. Let's say the meat packers. Okay, just to give one example, it's not the only one, but the places that cut up the chicken and the pork and the beef. They love immigration. They love immigration because they love illegal immigration because that way they can get super cheap labor and treat them just as bad as they probably got treated, in the countries that they left. And yet there's no choice for them. There's no legal. If they are considered illegal, then we can treat them like criminals, even as we use their labor at below market cost. So the free market says that price matches the things that people want. The price is the big communicator. How valuable is this? Well, it's actually quite valuable to have people doing all kinds of labor in this country. If we paid it if you paid labor what it was worth, okay, in the free market. I love the free market, but if you actually had one, people would be doing so much better. But they're not, because we don't have a free market. We have a manipulated market, and part of it is to keep it manipulated is hatred against immigrants and intolerance and that kind of thing, to blame them for problems that really are caused at much higher level. But I thought, correct me if I'm wrong on the ruling on the 14th Amendment, which has the clause in there about birthright citizenship, that was upheld in the way that it was basically said the Constitution is clear. If you're born here, whatever. They didn't go with the argument that, this was done specifically aimed at slaves that had lived in this country but weren't considered citizens. This wasn't just for them. It was for everyone. So that ruling was made. Now that must have made, isn't that a pro-immigrant type of argument from the Supreme Court? That's good.
Yeah. I think that Steve is kind of alluding to the outcry that we get from the conservatives for they're not getting their way. They really didn't want Chinese citizens are bringing over their babies on their vacation, having their kids, and now they have dual citizenship.
Yeah, and then Trump sent us Truth Social congratulating China on the great policy, and it's like, you know what? This is, I guess, a country. You know what a country is people within a territory that are under a shared government, a government in theory that
the libertarianness coming out of you right now.
But I'm just saying, if you think of a country as people in a territory with a government that they accept or tolerate. Now that could be a dictatorship that they are tolerate, or it could be a republic or democracy where they are part of their government, they're self-ruling. But that doesn't stay static. This is the example that not to bring Israel up again, but this is an example that you see with Zionism. Zionism is an ethno-state. So as it changes, it can become not an ethno-state, or it could be, it could be a state that's not a majority Jewish state. So they can't have that. Therefore, the government must become totalitarian and control and not even allow, they've got this new rule that the Knesset cleared, which they can hang Palestinians for any reason pretty much. But this rule only applies to Palestinians, which is basically on par with let's kill all the Palestinians, wherever they are. But why do they need that? Why do they need that? Because their concept of a state is different than what a state really is. They can't tolerate diversity. They can't tolerate change. And see, historically, things change. People move from here to there. People migrate. It's it is normal, and it should be something that is the free market welcomes. The free market does welcome it. The free market loves it. But states and governments that have control hate the free market, and it's the first thing they manipulate when they go into a country. And again, back to colonialism. Why would we have colonialism? They said, oh, we're going to bring God, we're going to bring Jesus to the people. No, really what colonialism is about, what imperialism is about, it's not bringing good things to these people. It's taking good things from the people and hauling it back to your, ruling class scenario. And that has been practiced for, thousands of years. We understand it. Doesn't make it right. And it really makes it hard to celebrate the July 4th, 250th when you see our government behaving worse, far worse than the government we revolted against.
Yeah.
And,
it also makes it harder because beef is like $39.99 a pound for good stuff nowadays. And right. Sure. Everybody's going, it's good to be Italian because we know how to take the cheap cuts and make them taste good. I had some braised lamb chops yesterday, Colonel. Yeah. Steve, I'll let you jump in here, but if there's anything you want to say, please do so. But I want to piggyback on this because I think that when the left is in charge, right, the left is ridiculous, right? They believe shit that's not true. I once heard at a hearing, a lady said, when asked by a congressman that a man could have a baby, she was like, yes, a man can have a baby. Like she said that shit. Like the left is just batshit crazy when it comes to that stuff. At least the establishment that's in charge that are run by the globalists that are pushing this divisive bullshit, right? But the conservatives in this country, they lack principles. Right? They'll say they stand for the Constitution, and then their hatred for immigrants or communism is so bad that right now we have flock cameras, and we term about this on the shows. They're everywhere. So for the tough on crime mentality that the Republicans want every time, because they think the Democrats are weak, so when they get in there, they're going to be tough on crime. They lose their principles, and now we have a spy state. I don't even call it a security state because they got cameras everywhere. It's almost what Larry Ellison talked about on day 2 of Donald Trump's second presidency. He goes, there'll be little crime because cameras will be everywhere. Well, it's happening. And that's because the conservative movement, they lack principles to say, we're going to stand behind the Constitution no matter what. Everybody's going to get due process. You're not going to be putting up flock cameras everywhere. They lack principles. And sometimes you can say the right grift, what we're seeing right now, is worse than the left grift. I'd rather deal with the woke. I'd rather deal with the woke bullshit than the security state getting upper hand. Please, Karen. Go ahead.
You talk about the grift. I mean, Trump has shocked even his closest supporters with the amount of grift that's going on in this White House. Yeah. And that again just illustrates lack of principle in his party. The Republican Party is supposed to be, constitutionally bound, and it's not at all. Not at all. In fact, you think about if we want to celebrate the 250th, we might want to revisit, what some of those founders had to say about the party system. In Washington, of course, was opposed to it, and so was Jefferson, and they were not from the same. Jefferson was an anti-federalist. Washington was definitely a federalist, but both of them were concerned about this party system, which would fight over stupid things and twist things, when really what we needed were people that understood the Constitution, exercised the Constitution, exercised the rights that are protected therein, and lived as if this, lived by that rule of law. And it's very simple. The Constitution sets up a government. That's all the front stuff. And then these first 10 amendments and some of the others talk about your how you relate to other people and how the government relates to you, how you might relate to the government. It's all of these things. And it's very simple. We don't do it. We don't do it. Republican and Democratic parties both hate the Constitution. I think that's, and I remember when Obama was president and there was a meme that was circulated and I totally agreed with it. And it was a picture of the Constitution as edited, or the Bill of Rights, I guess it was. Picture of the Bill of Rights as edited by the Obama administration. Of course, things were marked out, lined out, and blacked out as, okay, fine. And I said, yeah, that's totally true. And you could put the same exact thing with Trump's name, Biden's name, George W. Bush's name. You pick the name. They all did this. They all believe that we have no rights, and they think we're stupid, and they're doing everything they can to keep us stupid. And it's just ultimately they will fail. Ultimately, this project of dumbing down the crowds and ruling them and extracting them and watching them 24/7 and putting all their activities in a database. Ultimately, that's not going to succeed.
I don't know. Netflix has got a lot of good shows coming out. And,
yeah. Well, if you think about too, like I love the Philip K. Dick novels are great, very dystopian, but there's some other ones. I think, there's a number of other writings. I don't know if you've ever heard of Harrison Bergeron. It's a book written by the guy that wrote about Dresden, also his novels.
Okay.
But, anyway, I can't remember his name. I should. Anyway, Harrison Bergeron is a novella. It's very short. You can read it in like 5-10 minutes. And but it talks about a future where everybody's equal. And in order to keep them equal, we dumb them down and chain them up and put weights on them. And so the ballet dancer has to wear, 40-pound concrete shoes because that has to be equal with the non-ballet dancer. And in the end, the very end, I don't want to ruin it for anybody. It's a great story. But in the end, the state wins. Okay. It's very much like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Remember, in the end, what happened to the protagonist there? Well, he got a lobotomy and he's drooling in his wheelchair. That's how it happened in the end. So in the end of a lot of these novels, the state wins. But what is it that we feel when we see that? We're angry. We say that can't happen. We will not tolerate it. So I have to have hope in the human spirit that we are not going to tolerate the natural end of this. Speaking of the flock cameras, there's something going viral on.
Well, let's talk about that because there is a lack of principles on the right. We see that. I agree. Like at the event I was at in Minnesota, now the Democrats are handing out the Constitution. I'm like, where were you guys at when you were pissing and shitting all over? It's like whatever party's in power, they hate the Constitution, and the other side's complaining about it until they get in. Steve, do you have anything else to add to the Colonel? Because I think you heard what the Colonel said over there.
Yes. First
Please.
of all, I just want to refer you guys to the comments that Stephen Miller made yesterday about not allowing pregnant women who aren't American into the country. That's number one. And number two, this whole thing with the originalism, you know what? When they did that presidential immunity opinion last year, they stuck a knife in the heart of originalism. And go look at John Roberts never once referred to George Washington. You talk about originalism. He never once referred to the fact that when George Washington was offered the presidency for life, he said, no, we just fought, died, bled, sacrificed so that wouldn't happen. And that was not even mentioned in the opinion. You know what? It's like it's an upside down world when one of the leading white nationalists in the country is an African American who sits on the Supreme Court, guys.
Yeah. Well, about your George Washington thing, that definitely is something we'd like to ignore and think about. I think Trump has
There's nothing more original than him.
Yeah, I know. That's it. And he was a Federalist. He believed in a strong central state, but he understood what they had fought against. And the people celebrating the 250th, and I hope they do celebrate it, but they need to celebrate it in the spirit of Washington and Jefferson and even Adams, not in the modern day spirit, which is alien to them. And I can tell you, if those guys and many of the other people who fought that War of Independence against Great Britain, if they saw the current administration, or even if they saw the Biden administration, because policies haven't changed much. I mean, I think we had pretty steady wars there and pretty steady war. It's just nothing but war and nothing but spending, nothing but lies.
Different wars. That's it.
That's right. So I think those guys would stand against our government, and they would not be with a party. They would not be with the Republicans or the Democrats or even the Greens or the Libertarians. They wouldn't do that. They would stand against tyranny. That's what they died for. That's what they lost their fortunes for. Yeah. And tyranny sneaks back. Okay. It's not like you can kill it one time and it doesn't, it happens, but you have to fight against it. That's what we should be celebrating, but we're not. We're watched by cameras. And
The flock cameras. Steve, I love you. Make sure you go back to bed, get some rest, but listen to us as you're laying down.
Yo,
and I'm
at
sure we'll
4
hear from you
o'clock,
later on.
I want to. Yeah, I
You got
want
more
to
to
see
say.
what
Go ahead,
Reggie has
Bubba.
to think about patriotism.
What?
All right, take care, guys. Thank you.
Did you have another question, Steve? Or you
Take
good,
care.
Bubba?
No, I
right.
said I can't. I want to see what Reggie thinks about patriotism.
Steve is this guy calls in. He gives us the phrases all the time. What did you call Stephen Miller, the king of smug? Or was that?
No, that was Hexa.
No, I called.
That was Hexa.
I tweeted
Stephen
right
Miller,
away.
I said the best way we can protect ourselves from Stephen Miller is to drape him in a 6'4" condom because he's the human penis. That's what do you? I don't know what else.
You need some garlic or something around your neck with that guy.
Forget about
we
it.
need
You
protection.
Need a fucking cross, holy water, garlic, the whole 9 yards. You need friggin'
I mean, I don't
Van
know what's
Helsing in
wrong
the
with
room.
that guy.
Yeah,
And he
Good.
jokes and that smile.
Yeah. Now, Steve from Pearl River is a caller from WBAI. I still just want to make sure, and this is the position I've held, and I've gotten myself in trouble with the people over there at WBAI, is that we don't fall into the trap that right now that the left is the lesser of two evils than the right. I think what Karen said is very important. If the founding fathers were around today, they couldn't stand both parties. And that's the trap we can't fall into, because a lot of us on the left have always fallen into, well, Obama is the lesser of two evils, or let's mitigate damage over here. No, it's a vicious cycle that we need to reject from both parties here, because both parties are bought off and both parties are trying to.
Yeah, and I don't know how you do it.
Well, that's what this is. This is an experiment on how to find out, Steve.
There are many opportunities, and I want to say two things. One about Stephen Miller. I think it's an insult to the human penis to call him that. I think Stephen Miller is an ethno-racist. He's an ethno-racist Zionist sitting in the White House advising President Trump every hour. Okay. And his idea, I didn't see this idea. I heard it from you. This idea that you would take pregnant women and ban them entry in case they might have a baby on our soil. This is very typical of the way they think about citizens and non-citizens in Israel. And we don't want it here. We don't like it here. It's not part of our tradition. He needs to go to hell. This is just wrong. But yeah, you cannot insult him enough. And I don't know how in the world. Well, of course, the other guy is his little peer competitor is Howard Lutnick. You can't see a picture of President Trump without Lutnick lurking within 3 feet of the president. I don't know what that's
about. Karen, let's not forget Trail of Tears. Before there was even the state of Israel, we were doing it, and we were doing it. We're the original gangsters over here. Well, I don't want to say the OGs, but for us, we did it. We made our mark.
It's absolutely true. And that same mindset before Zionism was a kind of, it was an ethno superiority, religious superiority concept.
A white man.
That's right. And it did.
How?
It did it caused huge damage, obviously, and it's part of our history. But we as Americans ultimately rejected it. And there's nobody sitting around defending racism in this country, defending it. No large groups are defending it. If anybody stands up and defends racism or ethno superiority of any type in this country, that is not mainstream. That is heavily criticized. And both parties, all parties would disown that. Okay. So we have evolved, and there is such a thing as society's changing. What's weird is we're in the 21st century and we're changing backwards. We're readopting new types of ethno superiority, new types of racism. And a lot of it's coming straight out of Israel, straight out of the Christian Zionist playbook, the Schofield Bible, which is not even the Bible. It's, the whole thing is a mind game that has been played on Americans to bring us, to return us back to the 1850s. Well, I'm not willing to do that. And we don't have to do that. It's wrong, but we should call it what it is.
Yeah. Steve, we'll see you later, brother. I love you.
Hang in there, guys. Thank you.
We will. We'll fight the fight. Sleepy, make sure you put down Steve's number. Put it aside because I need that number, because that's a guy I got to call and speak to. I love him. Guys, remember, if you want to call in 561-247-2721. That's 561-247-2721. That's Bernie Sanders Blackjack. $27 a donation. Are we going to fall for that again? I know there's somebody in the chat. I saw him there. Money in Politics. He's a Bernie Sanders guy. He needs to stop that shit. That guy is, I mean, when that guy refused to take his movement to a third party, to the Green Party, in fact, which
sheepdoggy dog, dude.
I mean, it was just a sheepdog operation to get everybody back in the Democratic Party. And that's what people don't understand about Donald Trump. Same exact thing. Remember, you should start the Patriot Party. We'll have a lion as our mascot. Whatever. No, he sheepdogged people back into the Republican Party. That's what these people are meant for, and that's what they have us doing. Can we talk about Russia real quick? Sure. Colonel, because I don't know what the hell is going to happen. I've said before that the only way this can end is if the Russian Federation, along with Vladimir Putin, decide to take Kiev. You have Stefan Bandera's descendants, the Banderites, which are Nazis that fought with the Germans in World War II, that are pretty much controlling the government. It was a coup. It was a color revolution pushed by the United States, Victoria Nuland, and all those other people. We have the videos, Jeffrey Pyatt. I think she makes good chocolate chip cookies. She was handing them out on the Maidan.
Yeah.
But we went and overturned the government, and then we used this force. We armed Nazis to kill, civilians in the Donbass, close to 14,000 of them, hiding in their basements, eating pickled vegetables and stuff because there are bombs going up. Their airport completely obliterated. And before the Russians finally got involved, the Federation, after being pushed, and Vladimir Putin doing Minsk 1, Minsk 2, and for almost 8 years before they got involved. I said they can't take this country unless they can't stop this unless they take Kiev. It's a quagmire. Can you imagine if the Russians tried to take Kiev, the guerrilla warfare and all these other buildings everywhere where these Azov battalion people will be hiding? It will be complete fucking chaos. However, now we're talking about Europe opening up drone factories. Yeah. I mean, Vladimir Putin and the Russian Federation has to understand and knows for a fact that this is a war with NATO. This is a war with the U.S. This is a war with the Europeans. That's where the money and the weapons are coming from. Yep. How long until Vladimir Putin starts firing at weapons manufacturers in Europe? And does that mean we get from World War III, the Cold War we're in right now, to World War III, the hot war? Because with everything we're seeing around, even with the whole situation with Iran, right? And now Turkey talking about getting involved, which is very scary. We're seeing regional wars. We're seeing world wars. It almost looks like we're lining up to have another great hot war. Yeah. But sticking on Russia, Ukraine, what do we do, Karen? I mean, this is going to get.
Well, we've done enough. How about we walk away from Ukraine? But we can't. There's profit there. It's not profit like. Ukrainians are buying, like they have great wealth. They don't have any wealth. Most of their future stuff in the ground's been already contracted to major corporations, Western corporations. So they don't have anything to give in the future or the present. They've lost over half their population. Most of them are the ones that are dead. The ones that are left are not coming back. So it is a hollowed out country with a very wealthy, small racist oligarchy. And I don't even know if they were racist. I don't even know if you could say, they're Nazis. Yeah, a lot of them are Nazis. But most of them are just self-serving, pitiful, oligarchs. They're not bound by a particular, and I think this is what Israel understands very well. They accuse that, you take Nuland. She's a big Jewish Zionist neocon in our State Department, career State Department, married to another one, neocon.
Robert Kagan.
Sure, but Jews who are politically minded, and I would not call them practicing Jews really, but they're politically minded, that they're driven by Zionism. They'll work with anybody who furthers their advance. They'll work with Nazis. They worked with Nazis in the founding of Israel. They worked with Nazis in Germany prior to Hitler's rise. Even they saw opportunities, just like any organized group of people, unbounded by a certain principle, which could be religious or could be moral, unbounded by that. And they said, what's good for me? And in Ukraine, we see Israelis heavily participating in sort of, we see American neocons loving up on the Azov battalions, celebrating their work, celebrating Zelensky, making sure that he doesn't get his throat cut, because he's very vulnerable to that in a government like he has. He's no longer elected. He's long past elections. Everyone hates him. His popularity is like, 15% in the polls that they do, which are, that's in country polls. You have to be careful in country if you say you don't like the president, and it's still running at under 20%. So anyway, the country's a mess. Other people are using Ukraine, other people being many of the countries, obviously us, the Israelis, as a marketplace, as a testing ground. And, because who's providing their weapons to Zelensky? Europe, America, and Israel. These are the things. So the whole thing needs to stop. If we pull out, this is the thing that Trump, he thinks America is so great. It is great. We are a huge, huge country. If we pulled out of the Middle East, you would not have wars against Israel. They don't, this idea that, if the Americans aren't there, Israel will get bombed to death. No, Israel will behave itself. And once it behaves itself, nobody, you stop the genocide, you get back into your borders, you start behaving yourself as a normal country, you don't get bombed to death. That's not how it works. If we pull out of Ukraine and we stop helping and funding and encouraging and demanding that they continue this fight, if we pull out our massive resources, that thing is over with. We have refused to do both those things because of what you said. We are run by someone that profits over war, a group of, our economy is tilted towards war. War is good. Now, the problem is, Russia has already said, like you said, well, is Russia going to hit these factories that European countries are building drones for Ukraine, with Ukrainian guys in their factories, and then this stuff is like a shared, a joint project kind of thing. Will those European located factories be targets? No hesitation. That's what Putin has said. That's what Lavrov has said. They will be targets. We will, if there is a Polish,
what does that mean for escalation then? Because if the Democrats are back in power, like in a couple of years, Gavin Newsom, forget about it. You will not attack our friends and allies. Vladimir Putin is trying to recreate the Soviet Union. We need to attack. And let's not forget, it was Biden in office when this thing really popped off. I don't want to get away from the help that Donald Trump gave the Ukrainians by giving them more anti-tank missiles and whatnot. He even made the comment, Obama gave you sheets, I gave you more stuff. He played his part, but it was still definitely Joe Biden who pulled the switch when he was in office.
It was, but the same amount. Trump hasn't ended any aid. He hasn't really slowed down any aid, other than we ran out of old stuff to give him, and then he entered. Now we don't.
But in symbolism, there's symbolically we're against it.
Yeah. He's well. They're not against
Alaska.
It. What's going to happen is what always happens is and this is what we say in a situation of a genocide. The strong do what they will. This is from the Peloponnesian War. The strong do what they will, and the weak suffer what they must. And so you see a genocide, and the Gazan people, in terms of military capability, are very weak, and they suffer what they must. And I know Iran is, with the resistance front, is trying to stand up for the Gazans. No one else has done that. In fact, we are bombing. Every bomb that has dropped in Gaza, intel, all this stuff comes from the United States.
USA, baby.
We're part of it. And, these people that talk about what we did to the Indians, the Native Americans, we did that. We did that 120 years ago. And 100 years ago, we did that. Guess what? We quit doing that, and we condemned it. And now we're doing it again in Gaza. Exact same thing. Don't think like it's just Israel. Don't blame Israel for it, because they wouldn't do a dime of that stuff. They get it all.
They're doing what we did. And the thing about it is, Karen,
for it. We're paying for what they're doing.
We're paying for it. The thing about it is that right there and then, when you say, well, yeah, we killed the Indians and stuff, but we wouldn't be around. We wouldn't have a country if we didn't do it. So maybe it's like a necessity that what Israel is doing on our dime is necessary to be done.
Well, the only people
we did it ourselves. Who are we to say anything?
Yeah, well, we are somebody to say everything, because we rejected that. We became aware of our history, and now we're deep down. It's like nothing happened. Yeah, sure. Well, they need their land. They don't need their land. They stole every bit of that land. And what they're doing in South Lebanon, in the West Bank, and in Gaza, we're funding it. We're funding every bit of that. We could pull the money. that doesn't make Israel less racist. That doesn't make them less hungry for their neighbor's property, but it does constrain them. We're not willing to constrain them because guess what's really constrained when we do that? Somebody's pocketbook, somebody's profit margin, somebody's IRA investment, somebody's Lockheed stocks or Palantir stock price. And if you look at our market, if you look at just our market, look at the top companies that are really dominating. Most companies are just marginally profitable or negative.
BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard.
Yeah, they own all this stuff and they own heavily in overpriced stocks that are aimed at destroying things. And this is not a wise economic model. You can only destroy. It's almost like the military, the warfare state, the military-industrial complex. It's shared beyond the United States. Europe has one. Obviously, Israel has one. Increasingly, Russia and China are engaging as they have to, but they don't have the profit margins that we have here in that military-industrial complex. But isn't that just like the same? It's imperialism come home. This is what it looks like. You have to keep taking. And the people who are critics of global capitalism, like Marx, you have to, this is the natural extension of global capitalism, because around the world they produce goods that we used to produce and sell. Buy American used to be something the whole world was interested in doing. We had great stuff, it was affordable, but now the rest of the world can produce all the things that they need. They can produce their clothing and their technology and their chips and everything else. It's all spread out. It's a multipolar world when it comes to the economy. And yet we still have to force them, we have to, where's our profit going to be? Well, it's going to be in war. We create wars, we create conflict, we have buyers, we destroy stuff, they have to buy new stuff. So we've created a kind of a capitalism economy, a capitalist cancer, which is
a stakeholder capitalism type of, yeah.
So anyway, but it's, Russia has been very clear. And I'll tell you that when they were ultimately, they've stuck to the special military operation and its definition, which was now over 4 years ago when the thing started. And of course, they could have ended it a few months afterwards in Turkey, remember, in Ankara. But the U.S. and the Brits came down and blew that up. So we couldn't have peace, couldn't end it, had to keep going because profits were remaining to be taken. And but at that time, when they entered, Putin published the objectives of the special military operation in Ukraine. And it was to protect the Russian oblasts. It was to protect the Donbass. It was not to take resources or anything like that, but it was to protect Russian culture in Ukraine, which, of course, is not being protected in the eastern or the western parts of Ukraine. Of course, they're still, the churches are illegal, Russian Orthodox. There's all kinds of anti-Russian sentiment. This is coming from the Azovs, the Nazis there. But they haven't succeeded with that. And also, they said, we're going to clean out the Nazi influence in Ukraine, because that should have happened after World War II, when Russia lost literally millions and millions of people fighting the Nazis. So that's a continuation. It is a shared objective. The people in Russia support it. Putin has stated it. They never changed it. Very clear. And that hasn't happened yet. So what is it going to take to get rid of the Nazi?
What's going to happen when the bombs start flying into Europe is the next question.
Well, first off,
if that happens.
If Europe has the same leaders that they have right now, they are all beholden to war. However, the people.
Keir Starmer went running out. He's like, I had enough of this shit. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they had to force him. They had to force him out. He still loved it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the people in Europe just want air conditioning right now. They just want low energy costs, and their governments have prohibited them from buying cheap Russian gas and oil, which is something they depended on 10 years ago. But that's all because the Americans want to supply expensive oil and gas to Europe. So they can't afford air conditioning. You get a heat wave like this, thousands of people in Paris, thousands of people died in Paris. That's just one place, one city, one large city, but still, they want the basic necessities of life. Europe is turning into a hellhole, and it's not.
We got to call her Pasta.
Yeah.
It's not because of immigration. It's not necessarily because of immigration. That is a bogeyman. It is because of their governments. The
right wing across America, though, is blaming the immigration problem. That's immigration true. Is the problem to everything. If in America, this mindset that if you fix immigration, you'll fix everything. Everything will fall in place. It's just I don't know what you're smoking and what pipe you're smoking it out of, but I want to taste some. Let's get to the caller real quick, Colonel, and we'll get back to this conversation. We got plenty of time here. Guys, we are hitting big numbers now. 43 people on YouTube, like 30 people on Rumble. Like, woo, let's get over 100 in show. That would be kind of cool to get it going. Caller, who are you? Where are you calling from?
It's David from Melbourne, Pasta. How you doing today?
I saw you in the chat there, Ty. What's up, Dave?
Well, I just got done with a great birthday, and I saw you were talking about the Ukrainian biolabs. I've done some research on that stuff, and the Daszak and Fauci contracts going with the NIH go back to 2012, the year of the Maidan coup. So, I mean, it really looked like they had all this set up under Obama, actually, and who knows how far back it goes. But there's a great documentary by RT about the Dashbold cults that are currently running the Azovs and all the lab leaks they had because they're a bunch of freaking crazy Nazis, delivering bodies for the transhumanists. And I really want people to understand how bad this was. There were almost 16,000 Russian-speaking Ukrainians that were like burned to death between 2014 and 2016. And those bodies are what was used for those transhumanist biolabs, because that's exactly what they are. Meanwhile, that same documentary documented like 14 strains of COVID they were developing, along with bioweaponized insects and other things. You can't do these things without human parts and stem cells. So not only were they developing these things, but they were using the Ukrainian Russian people to do it. I mean, these are abominations. And we really need to focus on just how evil, absolutely evil this is. What's more, that same documentary shows...
Really quickly, Dave, at the same time with all these happening with the transhumanism, the bioweapons, because they were actually doing testing for specific weapons for race-specific, right? Yeah. Like the Russians have found them. But also the children trafficking that took place during all this time, too, was off the fucking charts. Please continue, Dave.
They're still taking people off the streets. I mean, Trump made a nice show in the office about, don't do it anymore, but we're still funding it. We're still consenting to this with our taxpayer dollars and through our apathy. We really need to focus on this to know that, let the people in charge know that we're serious. No more of this, no more war, no more transhumanism, no more human trafficking or else, because they don't speak in any other language. Our leaders are afraid for a very good reason, and it's because the people are outraged. What's more is we have a domestic terrorist problem that's connected to Azov, which is the Dashbold cult. They have at least 75 churches in America that are cosplaying as Christian, but they're neo-Nazis. So, why hasn't this been addressed? And what's more, the entire Mormon culture and transfigurism, which is one of their things, is just an offshoot of transhumanism. In fact, they worship Dashbold too. It's their Lord of Light. And it looks like Scientology came from the same origin, and where their crazy beliefs came from. So we have all these sleeper cells, in America. So are these Israeli biolabs that we're finding really that surprising? Things like Zorro Ranch with Don Huffines, who runs a Secret to Me program that takes stem cells and then genetically edits them for gene therapies. I mean, This is all so in the open that I don't understand how people are missing them unless they really, really don't want to think about it. I understand it's scary, but it's time that we put our big boy pants on and start talking about this like adults.
Can I say something, Dave, too? Isn't it crazy how the New York Times admitted that in Zorro Ranch, transhumanism was being practiced by Jeffrey Epstein, but yet they never really talked about Zorro Ranch. All they did was stay fixated on Epstein Island, and everybody wanted to know, the people, the inquiring minds who understood what was going on was like, we want to know more about Zorro Ranch, but they never talked about it. They mentioned it once, and then they went away with it. Jeffrey Epstein was practicing transhumanism. Next on 6 o'clock news, a cat got stuck in a tree near a flock camera. It's like we went away from it, and they never talked about it ever again, Dave.
That's right.
I mean, we can find a pimple on an Afghani's butthole, but we can't find what was going on at Zorro Ranch? Are you kidding me? And what's more, the first pictures that came out of Zorro Ranch were also very telling, because where there was formerly like a nice, pad and helicopter pad and stuff, it looked like they detonated it from underground. It really looked like they did some kind of underground demo, because then it sunk into a giant sand pit. There's definitely something going on there. There's definitely something going on there. But yeah, we had neo-Nazis all around us.
Right. He was keeping young girls pregnant.
Remember that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
Epstein was one of those rare blood types. So he can't clone himself. One of the hang-ups with cloning has been the Rh negative cell, which represents 16% of people in America, cannot be cloned because of its thicker cell wall the last time I checked. So for Rh negatives, in order to, continue your bloodline, you got to do it the traditional way. Well, the problem with that is Rh negative and Rh positive blood types have trouble cross-speciating. This is why the inbred kings had trouble having children. This is why Ashkenazi and Khazarians have trouble having children, because they've been inbreeding so heavily for so long and practicing things like what the UN is exposing, that their genetics are completely destroyed. That's why they kidnap kids. That's why they kidnapped the Mizrahi Jews in the 50s and 60s. Is because they have so much trouble procreating that they have to rely on these experiments. Otherwise, they'll get bred out. But yeah, we have ROGAM because it's the only way for Rh negative moms to have Rh positive children. Otherwise, their bodies attack it as a foreign alien invader. But doctors won't tell you about this until you're actually a pregnant mom with an Rh positive child as an Rh negative blood type. And these secrets are hidden right in plain sight. Health class doesn't teach you about this stuff.
Yeah.
No, it's true. It's true. This is really horrifying when you think about the Zorro Ranch stuff and how even at it also illustrates not just the federal level or the people advising New York and Washington. The state of New Mexico was compliant in shutting down any investigation into Zorro earlier. Early, this oh no, we protect that. That's not. And then it is interesting with the family that the corporation, the family, the Christian. They're going to make a Christian park in Zorro Ranch. They bought the people that bought it. I can't remember their names, but they're the ones that did a lot of redecoration of the grounds, which looks like an underground explosion collapsed a whole facility. But yeah, I mean, this whole thing is there's a lot to it.
There was this kind of feeling, right? So one of the things that Donald Trump had campaigned on was the Epstein files, right? Like getting that out there. There's a small group of people who really hoped that we would get some answers on what was going on at Zorro Ranch. The finger was being pointed at Bill Richardson. That he was once the governor, that he still had a lot of power, that he could suppress a lot of investigations to what's going on. But there was a small group of people who said, just like there was a small group of people in the Maha movement that thought he was going to pull away the liability of the vaccine makers and stuff and really expose some stuff. There was a small group of people who thought that we would open up the doors once again to Zorro Ranch. This is another big failure, and it shows you who Donald Trump is protecting, because really, to tell you the truth, there were so many I's that would be dotted, so many T's that would be crossed if we went in to find out with Zorro Ranch, because it would make such a comparison to what was going on with those bio labs. And I talk about it all the time. Like, nobody's talking about the real problem being the Patriot Act has allowed the door to be open. It's very vague, but it allowed the intelligence community, it let the military community, and of course, that private, what do you call it? The connection between the private industry and the government, that whole connection right there, right? It would really blow up a lot of these situations. And the fact that they're out there, they're allowed to do these testings with the Patriot Act, and we're not even looking at that. I think everybody on this phone call right now, probably our friend here as well, David, would probably all agree that COVID was created in Fort Detrick. I mean, I think a lot of us are still who know what's going on. We're like that. And I don't want to use the term lab leak because it seems like it was let out on purpose. But David, please continue. I'm sorry if I cut you off there.
No. I do it all the time. I appreciate everything you had to say. So in the Epstein files, there was an email between Gates and Epstein discussing intentionally releasing a single COVID strain. And if you saw the RT documentary, there was a COVID strain that leaked from the labs along with, I believe, cholera and E. coli. And what did they try to do? They tried to blame fucking Africans for that one, for both of those. However, all three of those lab leaks were confirmed. And if you remember in 2018, 2019, we weren't admitting that we had the Ukrainian biolab. So they blamed Wuhan. Given the misdirection, and I was in Breckenridge, Colorado at the time when COVID started, and we heard that COVID cough as early as like September 12th, September 13th, for people coming from overseas. And I remember thinking, oh, it's going to be bad this year, you know, because you get an annual cold in the Rocky Mountains every year, no matter what. You got people coming from all over the world to vacation and party. There's going to be a cold circulating. There's going to be a flu circulating. But I just remember thinking, oh, it's going to be bad this year. I had no idea how bad it was going to be. Now, at the time, I was aware of sun dimming and all that and how it was going to affect vitamin D deficiencies, but I didn't think they were going to use it as like a fascist methodology to basically, you know, shut everything down.
Yeah.
But they did. And we really need to start looking at what they're not talking about rather than what they are. Because honestly, they give themselves away with the common sense questions they never ask. Like, hey, we were growing 14 strains of COVID at the Ukrainian biolabs at the time, and we know this now. So statistically speaking, what's more likely? One of the 14 strains, which we know did leak in Ukraine while we had active people coming back and forth for the Ukrainian neo-Nazi funding and conflict, like Zelensky and whatnot, or the 6 strains that were being grown at Wuhan that actually had much better security than any of these Ukrainian biolabs getting deliveries from inbred neo-Nazi pagans. You know, these are common sense questions that we really should be asking as Americans. And I'm not saying that's the truth, but if we're not asking these questions, then we're not giving good faith to what is possible. You know, we know about Plum Island and the Montauk Project now. We know these people have been bioengineering us for years. And the stated goal of the Transhumanist Party on their values page is to biomodify all life on Earth to what they want it to be. You know, these eggheads like Klaus Schwab and Yuval Harari, do you really want to be biomodified to what they want you to be? That's the question everyone should ask themselves.
Was it Klaus Schwab? Won't it be great that in 20 years from now, across the room, I won't even have to talk to Karen Kwiatkowski because I will know what she is saying as we are using our Neuralinks and transfer. I mean, these guys say the most creepiest fucking things, and they get away with it. You know, I also have to point out, too, as well, the duping, right? Like, this has been the great duping. Like, we got duped with Obama, right? We thought this motherfucker was going to end the wars. He was going to come down on Wall Street. We had the Occupy Wall Street movement. And then 2 days into it, he goes, look, Citibank picked my economic cabinet. And it was like, oh, shit, we got played. The great duping has happened taking place because we really had a merger since Obama of the conspiracy theory moving into the mainstream, right? Like Epstein did that. 9/11 had people scratching their head going, wait, something is going on more than they're telling us. But Epstein solidified it. Now, all those things they talked about are actually true. There's a group of pedophiles, the elitist pedophiles that are using children as currency. This stuff is really going on. Okay, Donald Trump is the one who's going to come in and fight for us. He's going to expose the Epstein files. We're going to throw elites in jail. We're going to stop this shit. He's going to join with Maha. People in Maha, they understand that this is about bioweapons. This isn't just about health. This is about that transhumanism we're talking about, right? This is about Neuralinks. This is about, you know, engineering our bodies. I mean, a lot of people will even say that the vaccine itself was the bioweapon. He even screwed them on that. He pushed back against religious exemptions in courts, and everybody in the Maha movement is just sitting there with pie all over their face going, holy fuck, we got played again. It really is a shame because everything that we thought we had on the table, there were things that, you know, as leftist, whatever you want to call me, yeah, if Trump gets in, I'd like to expose these things. I definitely thought he'd be better for the First Amendment in our speech. No, we've gone the same direction we've been going into, and that's a more of a security state, a spy state, a transhumanism state. Nothing has fucking changed. In fact, it's accelerated because this guy fucking slowed down the opposition because we thought he was going to be on our side. Dave, take the last 30 seconds and talk to us.
Okay, so we had some warnings about Trump. 1995, the year that Quiet Weapons for Silent Wars was printed, Trump was caught on TV saying, if I was ever to run for president, I'd run as a Republican because they're the dumbest voting bloc out there. And I remember watching with my dad and saying, why would he say that to his future voters? I had no understanding of predictive programming or revelation of the method at the time, but I do now. And when he ran in 2015, he ran against a guy named Zoltan Istvan, the president of the U.S. Transhumanist Party, which had been formed in 2014, but by 2015 somehow had a presidential race set up. I mean, if you know what it takes to set up one, setting it up in a year is like not enough time. You don't get enough money. But sure enough, Zoltan Istvan was running for president in 2015, and he backed out and he said, Trump will be good for science. in an inverse article. Now, what kind of sciences do you think he was talking about? Of course, transhumanist sciences. The president of the transhumanist U.S. political party is going to be interested in those kinds of sciences. And then if you fast forward to 2019, Trump had pretty much screwed the pooch and made everything obvious. And so they needed another person. At the Ohio DNC convention, where the Shadow app was used to steal it from Bernie as a nomination, Zoltan Isvan gives this extensive hour-long speech about how now we need Biden in power. Zoltan Isvan, the head of the Transhumanist Party, was running for president in 2019 as well. And he was a listed cyborg at that time. You know, why do we have cyborgs running for president and nobody knows who they are? Plus, this guy's name is impossibly cartoonish. He's like a villain from a comic book, but he's also real. You know, why are people not aware of these basic, you know, like overlords that are living on our continent, like Zoltan Isvan? When they do enter the public space, they do say these crazy, insane things, and they have been political candidates. Like, this is a near and present threat, and not enough Americans have really looked into it, in my opinion, to galvanize a resistance. And this is why we're living under a geoengineered sky with a dim sun, you know, for the actual Black Sun Thule Occult Society. These are the people you need to look up, the Black Sun Thule Occult Society. You can link them to Bolshevism, the Azovs, you can link them to the Nazis, and you can link them to modern Israelis. As the Nuremberg Protocol showed us, and the Nuremberg trials, after the death camps let out, they had Khazars and Ashkenaz hunting down the Jews that were fleeing, killing them, and in some cases cannibalizing them, and in all cases stealing their identity so they could emigrate to places like Argentina, America, and Israel. You know, they leave their agents everywhere. And it's about time we root all these weirdos out and maybe march them back to Khazaria or something. I don't know. I don't really know the solution. But the bioweapon, the COVID shot, had two delivery systems. One was a prion system, and one was a DARPA hydrogel system. These are both immortal creatures. Okay, they don't die. You know, they only die in like direct sunlight or formaldehyde. And as we have seen from the coroner's reports, when they pull these giant blood clots out of people, anywhere from like a foot long to 4 feet long, they don't stop growing. That is exactly how a hydra grows. It doesn't stop growing. It doesn't stop expanding. You can cut it into a million pieces, and it'll either reform the same hydra, it'll reform a million different hydras. And the only time these things died is when they put them in formaldehyde solutions. What does that say about what's happening to us? Especially since this is a leaky vaccine, and mRNA is light enough to float from one person to the next. You know, there is no safety. All these people running around talking about pure blood and stuff, that's just crazy. That's just self-illusion.
Well, I think that the next hot war that we have is not going to just be about releasing bombs that produce fire and flames. It's going to be more of these bioweapons that are going to engineer us out of existence. Dave, thank you so much. Happy birthday, buddy. Thanks for calling on in, man.
I appreciate you. Thanks for giving me a voice.
Always, brother. Always. That's Dave from Melbourne. Colonel, if you want to pick up from there, saying there's other things we could talk about. I have other questions, but if there's anything else you want to say about the Epstein class.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, let's say all this Epstein class, these people, they do not have armies unless they can co-opt governments that have armies and governments that have the right of force over a given territory. And that is the definition of a government. A government is it has the sole use of power over territory and a population. Okay, that's a government. I don't care if you elect it or if it's a dictator or if you've been colonized, but your government is defined by its power over and its legitimate and sole use of force. So these crazies, these transhumanists, these other groups that seek resources and experimentation and murder and cannibalism, all these things that they might seek, are made powerful because they can commandeer governments. If they can't commandeer governments and the money that governments leverage, which is they get it from the people, from borrowing on the backs of the people. If you can't control a government, you don't have an army. They don't have their own armies, is what I'm saying. So it sounds horrific And it is horrific what they're doing. But my concern is where power lies. And power lies with the state. And if the state is vulnerable to takeover or unseemly influence by any of these forces, which it is, the Epstein saga explains to us how all this works. Epstein didn't wear a uniform. Epstein didn't have a role in government. He wasn't a government bureaucrat. But what did he do? He was able, with his friends and investors, to leverage the power of government. And that is where the force comes in, because Epstein himself couldn't force you to do anything. The most Epstein force he could bring to bear was he could probably rape somebody, okay, which he probably did. He could do that on his own, right? That's a crime. That is a example of two people, one stronger than the other. One wants to abuse the other. Okay, Epstein fully capable of doing it. He cannot leverage armies, okay? But if people like him can influence, bribe, control, buy, be a part of government that we aren't able to see, we are not allowed to look into, then you have full armies at your command. Then you can start wars. So yeah. So here's my libertarian promotion here. We say end the state, or many libertarians say don't end the state, but let's limit the state. Or we can go with Elon Musk, who complains that you cannot audit the state. And he was on TV just not long ago with another interview saying, and he told us, he relayed a story. He said, and this is a good story. It is perfectly legit, and we can understand it. We don't have to be scientists or geneticists to understand it. He said, Senator Collins of Maine, they have a submarine building facility up in Maine. She, as a senior senator, put in $12 billion into the past budget of the U.S. Navy. $12 billion. She did it. She's a big, expensive, powerful senator. $12 billion for the Navy. She wanted submarines to be built. And obviously she expected them to be built in Maine. But no submarines were built, not in Maine or anything else. And so she called in the Navy acquisition guy, or the Navy programs senior admiral, called him into the Senate. This is a couple years later. He said, hey, dude, I gave you $12 billion for some new submarines, and there's no new submarines. You haven't built a single one. And the guy goes, yeah, that's true. And she goes, where's my $12 billion? Now, it's not hers, it's ours. But she said, where's my $12 billion? And he goes, I don't know. I don't know where your money is. Okay. Now, that's unacceptable. This is a story that Elon Musk shared, I think, on the big podcast, Rogan. I think he was on Rogan, and he shared this story. And his point was, in sharing this story, is there's zero accountability to what goes on in the government. They have all this money. We don't get to use it. But you know who does get to use it? The Epstein class gets to use it. The military complex and the bankers get to use it. Blackstone and BlackRock get to use it. Okay, they get the leverage, not just the money that the government collects, but the military force if need be. And we saw that combine in COVID with the COVID lockdowns. That was done through threats of jail. Who can threaten you with jail? Only the state. Only the state. Your neighbor cannot threaten you with jail. He might sue you. He might hope you go to jail, but he cannot threaten you with jail. That is the state. We grant that power to the state. That is a state authority. That is the use of force by the state to physically pick you up out of your house and incarcerate you. Okay. And that's a big way of how they, in addition to the propaganda with state-owned media, that's how they made the COVID lockdowns. That's how they got people to take these stupid shots.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
They also threaten people, like, if you want things to get back to normal, you'll comply and get in line. The sooner everybody complies, the sooner we can get back to normal. And people were so done with the lockdowns and everything that was taking place. So there was a lot of trickery too, as well. People just wanted.
It's trickery, but guess what? When the state threatens you, do you just laugh it off, or do you take it seriously? You take it seriously when it's because it's the only one you have to take seriously. It's the only one that can incarcerate you.
Do we have another phone call, by the way?
Yes.
Sleepy? Let's do it. Caller, who is it? Where are you calling from?
Hi, it's Joanna. I'm calling in from, I don't know where, on the road on 95 back home.
Somewhere in Florida, heading north towards the O-Town. How you doing, Joanna?
Yes. I'm good. How are you?
Good. What do you got?
Those lamb chops last night was delicious.
What's that?
Those lamb chops last night was delicious. I'm still savoring them.
Joanna got to try my lamb chops with polenta. And, a little pasta bolognese I had for a plate. I should probably put a picture up. I sent a picture to our good friend, Miguel Santiago, but I'm glad you like my lamb chops. Do you got anything in particular you want to talk about with the Colonel, or are you just kind of joining in the conversation?
Well, I just wanted to make a little side point. I think that you guys are giving Trump way too much credit on complex thought. Like, you guys have cited Trump doing all of these different things, and while I don't disagree on the premise, but I don't think it's him. I don't think he has the capability for any complex thought. I think it is people who are, I mean, all you have to do is give him a compliment and talk how highly he is, and then, you know, whisper what you want him to say and do, and he does it. Mm-hmm. If there were good people behind him doing that, I think he would do it. I don't think he has the capability for complex thought at all.
Well, I think you're underestimating.
That's all I wanted to make a point of.
I think you're underestimating him, Joanna. This guy was in the WWE Hall of Fame, so he could sell things. He understands. He's the great jester, and I get it. Look, at the end of the day, I think there are people behind him pushing him, and I think a lot of the reasons why he gets away with a lot of the bullshit, right? Because I've said this before too. This is the dumbest presidency of all time. Like, this is the dumbest. Like, you know, Joe Biden was the most incoherent, not there, out to lunch. We get it. You know, everybody behind him is pulling the strings. That's obvious. But the Trump administration was the most dumbest because the people he even had behind him. But that has to do with the population. We have been propagandized and dumbed down with our education, our everyday life. We have been consumed with reality TV. We need to take some accountability as a society ourselves on what's going on. Now, I don't know how we fix that together in this room to force other people to get up to speed as far as their education, especially when we have no control of the education system. But this is an attack on us via the system. And that people like Trump, people like Biden, people like Obama are just playing a part, Joanna.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree, but I really still feel like I know that the way I feel like is like, I've given this analogy before. So like, imagine you go to this party and everybody in the party everybody decides they want pizza. So they take this one person, because they're going to pay with one credit card, and they tell them, go ahead and get us pizza. We want Papa John's. And then they say, okay. Then the person goes to get the Papa John's. And on the way to the Papa John's, they get accosted by a bunch of people and say, no, we say that you have to go to Domino's. And he's like, but the people want Papa John's. And they're like, well, we always shop at Domino's. You're not going in. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and go in anyway. And as they go in, they start threatening him. They tell him he's going to get, nope, your family and all these other, no, you're not getting Papa John's. You have to get Domino's. So then he ends up getting Domino's. Comes back with the Domino's to the people. We didn't want Domino's. We said Papa John's. Yeah, but, you know, now he has to give some type of excuse or whatever. And then the people say, you know what? We're not going to elect you no more. We're not going to have you do it. And they're going to get the next person to do it the next time they have a party. And they do it again. And the same thing keeps happening. And I feel like that's where we are.
Yeah,
that is a pretty good analogy out there. What do you think about that, Colonel Karen?
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It makes a lot of sense. We definitely get told things that are not true. And Trump and we get told by these delivery boys, these political delivery boys who you know, they mean what they say. You know, hey, I tried to do this, but I got you this pizza. It's Domino's. It's almost as good as, you know, or whatever. Yeah, I think that's a good analogy, but it also is wrong for me to accept it, and I'll tell you why. Going to get pizza for a group of people, I'll do the run, right? That's a favor. That is something nice to do. You're doing extra work. You're in service to the people. Trump is not ever in service to the people, and neither was Biden, and neither any of these presidents. They are in service to another group of people that we don't even know. They take our money for sure. They go buy pizza with it, but it's not in service to us. And I think to even accept that any president, much less Trump, puts the needs of the Americans first would be wrong. So I love the analogy. I have to get away from a service-centered politician. There's no such animal. It doesn't exist. They're not there, and certainly not a president. They are in service to a whole different class that we don't know anything about. We can't audit, that we must pay and submit to, and that's pretty much the situation that we have. That is our nature of our democracy. So I like the analogy. It's good, but it implies service and goodwill. I just don't see that. I don't see any president doing service to the people.
But that's where I'm saying is that, and this is certainly not true for all, but I have a belief that people get into what they get into for a reason first, and then they get corrupted afterwards. And that's what I was talking about before when it comes to like and this is what I was talking about the other day when it comes to professions in general. You get into this to a profession with, and again, it's not for everyone. It's certainly not true for everyone, but the majority of people, I believe, and I just mean regular folk. You wake up in the morning, you go to work, you take care of your family, you come home, and you may have this dream of what is it that you want to do with your life. And as you get older, you have, whatever it is that you decide to get into. So if you decide I'm going to be a teacher, I want to be a teacher, you start with, I want to educate people and I want to grow our youth, to be productive members of society. And then you get into teaching and you realize that they don't pay well and you're restricted on what you can teach and do. And then they're, policing things that teachers can do. And it corrupts it where you can't do what you want to do. And I feel like that is something that can be said about a lot of professions, especially when the culture of a company is bad. And then I really feel like it starts with good intentions, because I have a belief that most people have good intentions, and then the culture of wherever they're into can corrupt them.
Yeah. No, that's true.
And then it just turns into like, well, I have to take care of my family. I need to make sure that me and my family I've gone so far down deep into this world and I have a family to take care of and I need to take care of my own. So I'm going to do what I need to do for me before anything else. And that's where it takes a really strong mind and a really strong character to go against that, regardless of what's going on around you.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I know when I spoke out at the Pentagon 25 years ago, the things that I observed, the lying and propaganda for war coming right out of our own intel community, but being manipulated for a particular purpose to go to war that nobody wanted, nobody needed, wasn't a good idea, didn't matter. Those things, the feelings and reactions that I had were shared by the people that I worked with. And so many of those people, that is exactly what it is. They have families, they had kids in college, they had mortgages, their wives or husbands preferred the lifestyle that they had working there. And so it was not something they could turn away from. I have the same problem I had. I know people work in the public schools in the state of Virginia. Some of them are very disappointed they thought they were here to teach kids, and it turns out that's not what the agenda is about. That's not what they're allowed to do, and they're not facilitated in doing that. And yet they have a retirement plan that they only have a few more years left. So I've just got to make the decision to do it. But I'm going to tell you, you take a guy who's a billionaire or even a millionaire like Trump. Trump, I guess, is a billionaire and has been for decades. He's been very wealthy and he can provide very well for all of his families, right? He's had 3 different wives and 3 different sets of kids. Mm-hmm. He's able to provide for them. He doesn't have to submit and hold that job. He doesn't have to say, I'll do what you tell me because I really need this job. No, he wants it because of power and because of blackmail, and he makes a choice. He has no moral. But the average person.
Oh yeah, but he's the exception. That's what I mean by when it comes to if you come from something already and you're trying to be something from coming from something, the only way is to if you're wanting more than what your parents gave you and you have everything already, where are you going to go? Where are you going to go to?
I think
you want to prove yourself.
Yeah, this is an interesting conversation. This is a what came first, the chicken or the egg thing, and I think that it might be equal. If not, it might be leaning the other way. I get it that you go into a system that you want to do things, but then you get co-opted. I think a lot of people, when it comes to Trump, when it comes to AOC, because we would call her AOCIA. You know what I'm saying? It's like they were prepared to do this. They were practicing to do this. They were meant to do this stuff. They were programmed, and they were actually, what's the word I'm looking for? Conditioned to do this stuff. AOC, she has this whole history. When you look into it, the people she worked for, these trips to Africa. So that's why the people call her AOCIA, that she duped the people on purpose. Donald Trump, I just put up on the screen, he was taught by Roy Cohen, or is it Roy Cohn or Roy Cohen? I can't. Roy Cohn, who was Epstein before Epstein, right? He's been running in those circles his whole fucking life. So he was, and then also Dave pointed out that he had said, I'd run as a Republican. Those people are so dumb, whatnot. You know what I'm saying? It's like he was almost meant to do this. I think there is that question, because people you start looking at their history. Do they go into a system and they get co-opted, or are they already co-opting the people before they go in? And that is a really good question, Joanna, because I think it's sometimes we don't know. We do have that question with AOC on the left. That was the one that we all looked at, because she was the one, she's going to fight for Medicare for all, right? She's going to fight for the working class. She's going to end the wars. But then she goes in there and she capitulates to Mama Bear. That was what they called Nancy Pelosi at the time, Mama Bear. And people are saying, was she co-opted when she got in, or was she already co-opted before she got in?
One of her first votes was like voting for NATO funding. So
exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of things we don't know. There's definitely a lot of things that it's like if you're viewing a court case, right, and you see the dockets that go into court and you can read everything that went on, but there's always so much more that you don't get to see behind that. But I think that at the end of the day, you have to come to a decision is who's going to do it, right? It's not going to be me. I'll say that much. It's not going to be me. But you got to see who's going to do it. You have to come to a level of trust and honestly hope for the best. And only time can tell at the end of the day. But there is something to, remember what I said before, there is something to whispering and saying good things to the people who have the power to do it, and then coercing them into doing what you want them to do.
Yeah. That is Joanna, somewhere on the road on I-95, heading north, calling from her phone 3 days in a row, Joanna. We love it. You bring the heat. Please keep listening. Please keep calling in. We do appreciate what you got to say. I think that's a great conversation. What came first, the chicken or the egg? I mean, I've had these conversations before. It's good to have them on this point. I do think, though, Joanna, when we do say this person had good intentions, but they got in and they were co-opted. I mean, this is funny that you're saying this, because yesterday you were like, we gotta trust people, and there's no trust, and yet you're saying there's a little trust there today. There is quagmires.
No, what I'm saying is that you have to. What I'm saying is that you got to get to know who are you voting for, and they have to gain your trust some way. And you have to believe what they tell you. I mean, there's the way I operate personally is that I give respect to everyone as a baseline. You get respect, and then you have to lose my respect through actions, through the things that you say. You can lose my respect, and then once you've lost my respect, it's definitely hard to get it back. That's a hard road. But everybody starts at a baseline of respect. So I believe when people tell me something, but if you prove that to be wrong, then it's hard to come back from that.
Well, I think that we're on that baseline where a lot of voters, they get that respect at first, but then they start learning the history of their candidate, and then they have to work themselves backwards. I think there's also something mental that when you've invested in a candidate, like people who have invested in Tulsi for so long, you know what I'm saying? And people who have invested in RFK for so long, people who invested for Donald Trump for so long, the ego stops them from realizing what goes on and say, let me back out. Joanna, Be safe
Tribalism.
driving on the road. We'll hear from you tomorrow.
Thanks. We'll see.
Hopefully.
All right.
Well, you have my
All right.
trust.
Bye.
And you have my respect.
Yes. You do
Thank you.
too. Thank you, Pasta.
Ah,
Thanks.
appreciate
Bye.
it, Joanna, everybody. Colonel, we're kind of wrapping it up. We got about 17 minutes left on the show. I know that's kind of near the end of the gate. I don't know if you want to make a comment on that, but I do want to ask you about the MOU, Iran, what's going to happen from this point out. We really haven't given our opinion. We talked a little bit about Russia, China. We talked about birthright today. We talked a little bit about flock cameras. I mean, which is like, oh my God, this is why the Republican right-wing grift in this fucking country is so bad. I mean, I almost think it's worse than the left right now. You know what I'm saying? What do we have to suffer? Bathrooms that men can use for women. I get it. That's a problem issue. You're a parent. So all right, whatever. I got it. But flock cameras?
Yeah.
Because we got to be tough on crime from the right. Because immigrants are coming to take our way of living that we got to we got to fucking geo-map the whole goddamn planet. Are you fucking...
And we need the data centers. We need the data centers to do it. You know, that's why.
Yeah, that's why we need the data centers.
Yeah. So it's not in the interest of people. But there's a great video of a guy who went to his town meeting or county meeting, county commissioner, whatever it was. And you know how they have public sessions where the people can get up and unload on the local government. And anyway, he unloaded about the flock cameras. He was not in the state when his car had a picture taken. They mailed him a bill, and he went through in like anybody can do constitutionally and rationally and every other way. And he had a great thing, and it's all over X and Facebook and all the social media. So look it up if you want. Flock guy testifying about flock cameras. It just happened recently, but anyway, I think that has huge power. The voice of people who have been wronged by the state, who are being wronged by the state, and the state's controllers. This is a huge power in that because it's shared experience.
And this is right-wing policy, by the way. This is right-wing policy. The fact that we got to be tough on crime.
Oh my
God!
God!
We're going to flock camera up the whole. There's no principles. What happened to their constitution? You're a libertarian.
People don't understand what is even in the Constitution. They don't understand the Bill of Rights. They think that they do, but they don't. And they really need to spend a little time every day thinking about what your rights are and how they are being violated, because there's no right that we have is being protected. And that's what the Constitution was written to do. So, and the Anti-Federalists made them put the first 10 amendments in. And the point of that was people may not know for sure. And, you know, the Anti-Federalist argument against, and particularly the Federalist argument against adding these 10 amendments was that if we say what these rights are and we list them, we define, you know, the right of assembly, the right to not have a church established by the state that you're mandated to attend, the right of free speech, the right of not to have your papers and your property gone across, the right of a fair trial of your peer, you know, all these things. The Federalists particularly said, and some Anti-Federalists agreed with them, they said if we define and narrow what these rights look like for people, because the people there knew what those rights were. There was a societal sense that we already know what our rights are. That's why we just got done fighting a revolutionary war for. But they said if we define them, we will narrow them more than they should be already narrowed. That was a really interesting thing. Like, oh, they're so much more. Our rights are so much more extensive, and the government has so much fewer justified and exercise of power to limit those rights than we can even say in a piece of paper. So we have to be careful. If we limit them, then the lawyers, the legal profession of the day and of the present, will get in there and say, oh, well, that's not specifically mentioned, so we can violate it. Yeah. Well, as we've seen, even when you specifically mention them, they violate them at will. And the American people as a culture, and that includes well, actually, it doesn't include our immigrants who go through citizenship, because, you know, those citizenship courses that everybody has to take if they ever want to actually, you know, become an American citizen. That's better education in your rights than anything they get in public school. We don't talk about it. So
what do you need to know? You need to know, like, what's on the Statue of Liberty, 3 Bruce Springsteen songs. What else is on that test?
I don't know. But they're good. They're good on or they used to be, that test may have changed, but it used to be that the constitutional part of that test actually ensured that someone who was going to be a citizen actually read the words that are in the first 10 amendments. And nobody knows what's in them. Yeah. And so that's why we've allowed the government to ruin it for us. But anyway, you can't put your trust in the state.
Sleepy, do we have another caller or no?
They hung up.
Oh,
all right, no, I'm sorry, caller. If you want to call back in, it's the last chance to do it. Colonel, tell us what your thoughts are really quickly before we get out of here on the MOU. That it's now, I mean, I know to me, I'm so scared about Vance. They're already starting to push Vance out there, right? You know what I'm saying? This is more security state. This is more Peter Thiel. Like I talked about in Minnesota, what the ICE agents were running was the same software that they were using in Gaza. So now you got all these flock cameras everywhere that are going to map the place out. ICE now is taking digital images of not just, and that's the thing, in their mentality, their system, to catch the criminals, to catch the immigrants, to catch the bad guys, you need to imprint everybody. Your face, my face needs to go into the system so they can tell the difference between the two. It's the same thing they did in Gaza. Yeah. And now they're plugging that in with flock cameras. Our move to the dystopian world is there. Yeah. You know, and I get it. But JD Vance to me represents that. I still see them. I see people like Tucker trying to push this guy. This is more Peter Thiel and all that bullshit. I think JD Vance is just as dangerous, if not worse, than Donald Trump. But
the other guy's
going to happen with Iran and
the other guy is the deep state warmongering neocon Rubio. So these are the two candidates. I want to make sure that no matter what our choices are in the Republican Party, Rubio or Vance, they get everything that they want. Now the MOU, Trump put Vance out in front of that, so that if it fails, he can, and he's pissed at Vance, or he decides the powers that be don't want Vance.
So the people going to buy it because they got up and they walked out of the room on JD Vance when they heard Donald Trump saying that the people in the negotiating room won't even get back to their own country.
That's what I'm saying. The MOU is going to fail, and when it does, they will hang that on Vance as he didn't do it. I think this is a political battle between Rubio and Vance, and whoever's going to be the next Republican candidate. And it's hard to say who the Democrats will field, but if they field the good hair guy out in California,
they're going to.
I'm just not sure. Yeah, because his track record's pretty bad. But anyway, I think all of it's just a political game. The MOU, I had hopes for it because it stopped the fighting. It was aimed at stopping the fighting for good over a 60-day or maybe an extended period of negotiations. But as the Iranians have proven once again to be correct in how they understand the United States, they don't trust us. They've said consistently, we bomb the diplomats, we threaten, we are full of lies. Nothing that the United States says, writes, signs, or does can be trusted for face value. They know that. They said that. They said we're responding in kind. For the world's sake, Trump bowed to pressure to stop the war and also apparently for the hot weather. We're not going to do any assaults. And we're not going to do any military operations. We also are licking our wounds from the 40 days.
Israel hasn't stopped bombing Lebanon.
Israel,
and in fact, it's like
Israel
nuclear weapon shit. Yeah.
Israel is continuing and even more aggressively continuing in direct violation and spitting in the face of both Trump and the MOU. Which says very clearly that they need to pull back to the lines out of South Lebanon. So anyway, it's an imperfect document. Apparently, those who thought it might be a way forward, which was me and a lot of other people kind of optimistic, turns out it's a holding pattern. It really is. I agree with the very much critics, the Brian Berletics and the Professor Zhangs and these other deep thinkers, even McGregor and these guys, Colonel McGregor, these people who look at war and they look at our diplomatic history, they will tell you this is nothing. We don't mean it. It's Minsk 2. It's Minsk 1. It's just another game. It's a tactical game. We don't mean it. We have no principles. Nobody trusts us. But I'll tell you, the benefit of this is it confirms for even more people that the United States is lies, cheats, and steals. War is its mission, but we're not good at war anymore. And we've never been good at diplomacy. We've lost any diplomatic skill set we've ever had. But actually, our money's no good in so many places. Our military is hollow in so many places. So all of this stuff, could we have world war? Well, if cooler heads prevail in Russia, China, and Iran, we won't. But if our government and our system it wants world war. It absolutely does. And honestly, you know, I'm with the Albanians in marching in the street and getting rid of their leader and kicking Kushner out and Ivanka out with all their things. But here, you know, we have this side issue like so many others. It's not a side issue. It's actually part of the main issue of all these billionaires and government oligarchs having bunkers. And you have to ask yourself, you know, are they filtrating the air for nuclear war or for a biological war? These are the questions. You know, what's really are they expecting to happen? Because it could be that if war is your business and war is the only thing you ever did that was satisfying, and that's what your elite oligarchs and your blackmailers want you to do as a state, will you do it? Because the path that Europe's on, we started with talking about Europe. Well, the path that Europe and NATO countries are on is a really negative path. I mean, this is like, I mean, these countries are gutted economically. They are gutted militarily. They're dependent on the U.S., which is also financially fraught with risk. I mean, nobody trusts us or our money. So at some point, we will have collapse. And those in the collapse, well, collapse, big collapse. That's not, but many millions, hundreds, thousands of small collapses. And every bit of that is an opportunity for voices, maybe like ours and maybe like other people's, to find those opportunities. And I'm telling you, the empire is dying. Empires always die, and ours is dying. That your best bet, if you want to be an optimist, is say, okay, in the context of what we know to be true, this empire is going down. What happens when an empire goes down? Well, some people get sucked down with it. Some innocent people get taken down with it. We don't want that. Economies get hard. How do we make ourselves resilient? How do we, and I'll disagree with our caller that was on the road. I may give people that I meet a baseline of respect and a baseline of trust. Mm-hmm. I will never give any government, any military, any baseline of trust. From the very beginning, those organizations, you have to, and then they can earn your trust. And this, honestly, I didn't make this up, but this is exactly how Iran has approached the MOU. They said, we don't trust you. They said straight up, we don't trust you. We don't like you. Your track record is awful. You've attacked us illegally multiple times, sanctioned us unjustly multiple times and consistently. You want an MOU you're going to sign. We have these 14 clauses. Every one of these is binding. Let's see what you do with it. You've signed it. Now let's see what your actions tell us. Yeah. They don't trust the United States government, and we shouldn't trust our government. We shouldn't trust any government. They are not human beings. They are, you know, the guy with the transhumanist issue, this idea of things that have life that are not human. That's what a government is. It has life, but it's not human.
Well, I think that they put this MOU out there because they wanted to embarrass America and show you that America has no control over Israel, because they knew Israel wasn't even at the table and they're not going to show them. And then we had this whole fake phone call between Trump and Bibi Netanyahu saying even the Jews on this phone call don't even like you. All the Jews you're pissing off all the Jews is what he said. I mean, everyone wants to believe this. This is more WWE wrestling. Look, I have a distrust for governments. I have a distrust for militaries, but I have a strong trust for you, Lieutenant Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski, and it's such a pleasure having you here on Wednesdays. Please let everybody know where they can find you, what your latest pieces. You have it up on Judge Knapp. You talked about it. If you haven't seen her show yesterday over at Judge Knapp, please go and see it and watch it. I still think, it's, to me, it's still the most intriguing show, and he's got a lot of great guests over there, a lot of fun guests. It's some great information out there. But yours is still so specific and unique because you have this connection to us humans out there, that human element you bring to the table. I think it's so important. And once again, thank you so much for joining us here on Wednesdays. Let everybody know.
Yeah, no, I have a Substack and other things, and I wrote on the scapegoating, which is what we were talking about with the parties. As long as they're fighting with each other and pointing fingers, and I wrote about that, and really a little bit about Tulsi, but it goes beyond that. We're actually scapegoating Israel, which you say, well, Israel does rotten things. Yeah, why are we pointing the finger at them? Because we're funding every single thing that they do, and we're in, just as they might be using our government, we're also using Israel to do things that the American people don't want. So Yeah. Anyway, but
well, the scapegoating. The interesting about that is, I was thinking, like, who is the scapegoating for? And first of all, the Tulsi thing. Once again, this channel, Tulsi Gabbard had a lot to do with the growth of the Convo Couch. She gave us access to her campaign. She came to my house where my studio was when she was running for president. There's nobody writing her speeches for so long. In fact, every single event Tulsi would have, she'd say, look, I'm going to have a press gaggle in the back. You want to ask me questions? Let's go. Exactly. She did that more than anybody. She was, there was mainstream media people in the room ready to attack her. She knew that. There were Democratic Party lackeys in the room ready to attack her. Independent people like myself who you don't know what's coming after. Yeah. And she was like, let's go. So I know she's a woman who thinks for herself, or, I would question, did she play the long-term PSYOP game, or is she an opportunist? I would say that, but the cult that she was in, that she was raised in, is not controlling her. That's just a stupid fucking hit piece.
And again, that's what caused me to write that, because as soon as I saw that with no real documentation, and then there was another one, a follow-up piece on something else, also quoting unnamed sources, and I thought, well, my goodness, they want to take her down. Why do they want to take her down? Of course, I draw the conclusion that they want to totally eliminate any honest or dissenting views of U.S. intelligence that's coming out of the DNI. And possibly, the CIA hates the DNI, right? Because the reason we got the DNI after 9/11 was because the CIA hadn't done its job. So they said, well, we need somebody to make sure everything's done.
Oversight. They don't want oversight.
Right. They hate that. So, but anyway, so they attacked her with a goal in mind. And that's what scapegoating is. You attack someone with a goal in mind. And that goal is really nothing to do with Tulsi. It has to do with further consolidating, in the current sense, Israeli control over our foreign policy. But it could be anything. It just happens that that's the issue of the moment. And you can see right through these things once you start looking. And I'm sure every caller today says, you know what? Once I opened my eyes, I saw right through it all. And that is true. So let's keep.
I don't trust Tulsi, whoever's saying that. And the thing, I haven't trusted her for quite some time. I'm just saying that she's playing her own game. She speaks. Yes. The fact that they said that this guy from this cult thing was writing her, that's just not true. I don't have to like her or trust her to know that that's a fucking lie. That's all I'm saying out there.
When their lies come out, the lies come out like that, and you're able to recognize them, it helps you understand what game is really being played in Washington. And again, so the best thing, don't trust. If the government says, this is Ronald Reagan's quote, you probably know it.
Trust but verify.
No, not that one. Well, that's another one they use all the time. But no, he said the 11 most terrifying words in the English language is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Yeah. That's what he said. And, that was back in the 80s. So, or maybe before he even ran. But, we should be concerned about our government. We need to don't give the state extra credit for stuff that's never done. If you want to give them credit for murdering people and dividing people and imprisoning people and surveilling people, sure, you can give the state credit for that. Partially. Yeah.
Well, the scapegoating is to keep the game going on. It's not about really putting the finger on somebody else and getting off themselves.
Oh, yeah.
It's to show that the marketing works, that we have an accountable government and whatnot. It's the illusion, the kabuki theater that our system in front of us, it's just more scuttlebutt to keep us consumed and not keep our eye on the prize. And I appreciated that piece, and I appreciate you. Thank you, Colonel Karen. We'll see you next Wednesday.
All right. Looking forward to it.
Have a great holiday as much as we can. We gotta dig deep and try to. You got any good plans or?
No, I don't celebrate the 4th of July, and it's gonna be so hot here that we're probably not even gonna do a cookout.
It's gonna be hot, but we're gonna cook out. At
the
end of the day, I look for the holidays, whether they be pagan bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
Anytime.
I look to cook and break bread with the people I love. So no matter what,
I love it. That's fantastic. I should do more of that. I'm not as good as cook as you are. I'm not anywhere near the cook that you are.
Well, invite me to your party. I'll show up and cook, and you can just sit there and eat.
I love it.
Pleasure, Colonel Karen. We'll see you.
See you later.
All right, guys, let's wind it on down. It's time to end the show. Look, music maestro. All right. Thought. I'm going to start over again.
Start over. It was being dumb.
Ready? As we wrap up.
There we go.
We're good. Sleepy there. I love you, brother. Look, as we wrap up today's show, let's take a moment to reflect on the importance of diversity and the thought. As we wrap up the show, I got the speech almost memorized. They say this almost at the end of every show, and here I am having problems. As we wrap up today's show, let's take a moment to reflect on the importance of diversity of thought and the peace we can cultivate with our neighbors. In a world that often feels divided, it's our differences that can actually bring us together. Every unique perspective, every story shared enriches our collective experience and fosters understanding. Remember, it's okay to disagree. It's how we handle those disagreements that truly matters. Let's embrace dialogue over debate, compassion over conflict. When we listen to one another, we open the door to meaningful relationships. By engaging with our diverse communities, we can find common ground and build bridges that promote peace. So I encourage you to reach out to someone with a different viewpoint. Share a meal, have a conversation, or simply listen. Let's create a ripple effect of kindness and understanding in our neighborhoods and beyond. Hey, thanks for tuning in today. Remember, together we can celebrate our diversity and pave the way for a brighter, more peaceful future. So until next time, keep the dialogue flowing and the peace growing. I want to thank Sleepy J on the ones and twos and all the great callers today. Of course, Karen Kwiatkowski, our guest. I think we had we had David call in today. We had Steve from Pearl River call in today. We had Joanna call in today. Am I missing anybody? Was there 3 calls or 4, or was that it? Well,
Man, I don't know. My memory's bad.
Mine too. It's a 2-hour show. Sometimes it flies by. I want to thank Fred Edward and Gabrielle Freedom, our producers in the chat, always holding it down and watching it. Thank you so much to everybody else who's joined in. Miguel Santiago, Money in Politics. I see you guys hanging on out. All the cool people. Knights, Exile, the Knights of Malta. You were all in that chat today. Thank you so much too as well. And guys, just try to be as kind as we can to each other in the chat and stuff. We don't have to be assholes to get our points across. I saw somebody come in at the last second, once again, was throwing shade. And don't worry, you can throw shade at me all you want. I don't care. I'm tough. I can take it. But let's listen to one another, like I said in the closing monologue. I love you guys. Get on out of here. We'll see you tomorrow. I do WBAI's drive time today at 4 p.m. Eastern. If you want to join on in, go to WBAI.org, and you can call in that show as well. Those lines get jammed up. It's only an hour show, but we'll be doing that today. Until then, I'll see you tomorrow. And remember, peace.